that the spiritual life has come to an end. Because at one point we basically make this very strong statement that your connection to Krishna is through the Guru. The relationship with Guru is eternal. The responsibility of the Guru is to take you back to Godhead. And your exclusive shelter should come from your Guru. We make all these very strong statements. And then we put that against the reality. That this is a person who is supposed to take you back to Godhead, exclusive, etc., etc., and he himself is gone now. So how do you deal with it? And the understanding is that perhaps he was never your Guru. And it's I think the statement that is there in the course, I took it many years ago, but I think the statement is that the disciple should meditate on the relationship with Srila Prabhupada, and then under the guidance of senior Vaishnavas look for a new relationship there.
Yeah, thank you. One other related question. Just like in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, it's the system of governance, you could say. It's monarchy. Modern days democracy. But the statement is made here, about respecting the king, or in our case, we could say respecting, the head of state. And so I'm just wondering, all those Prabhupada and his purports are very strong against, a Suri type of governance. I'm just wondering how should we, or to what extent, should we respect, head of state, or if some countries has kings and like that, knowing well that truly, really and truly, they are not representing the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm just wondering.
It's an interesting question. I think it's more of a discussion question than a question answer kind of a point. When Srila Prabhupada was there, then the draft in the Vietnam War was there, and Prabhupada would openly encourage the disciples not to be a part of the war. For same reasons, he would say that these wars are not being fought on religious principles. Right. So he would openly encourage them not to be a part of it. He would counsel them about, somebody would come and say that, this is how I'm thinking of avoiding it, and then Prabhupada would say, okay, I think it's a good idea. At the same time, Prabhupada was also very critical of those people who broke the law, whatever the law was. He was very critical that made different statements. Should be a gentleman, should be an outstanding citizen. So he made different points, and that's the balance that he was trying to make. He was definitely not trying to preach anarchy, where you're in a society that is run by Shudras, and you completely rebel against it, then you're just creating more confusion around that. So he always, he was always very strong in maintaining this view that you should abide by the rules of the society. So I don't think it answers your question, Prabhu, but it's just something that that probably requires more discussion and thinking. Like I said, it's not really something that one answer would be right, because as in many things, Srila Prabhupada, he took stands that were apparently contradictory, but at the end of the day, it kind of resolved, because his end goal was to spread Krishna consciousness in the society. So somehow they resolved in this end goal. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, verse 45. Tadari dharma pravillite nanam varna shrama charas yutas traimaya tator takama bhi niveshatatmanam shunam kapinamiva varna sankaraha. At that time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the castes and the order of society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus, they will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification, and as a result, they will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. So here now, Shamgrishi is coming down to Vaishya rule. So he spoke about the fall of the Brahmana. He said if the Brahmanas are good, everything is good. Then he talked about the fall of the Kshatriyas. And as a consequence now, he's talking about what will happen if the Vaishyas will as per calm, just for lusty reasons. So the what the administrators or the Kshatriyas are supposed to do, it is now gone to the Vaishyas. And the Varna Sankar, so he uses the word as unwanted population. So Varna Sankar literally means destruction of the Varnashram Dharma. And Srila Prabhupada translates it to unwanted population. To a great extent, men will exploit them. Men will exploit them. They will be unwanted progeny. So that's why he translates it to unwanted population. So for those who do not follow the Bhagavad Dharma, the greatest protection comes from Varnashram Dharma. And in fact, one can say the only protection comes from Varnashram Dharma at all. So Prabhupada says that it is foretold herein that in the absence of a monarchical regime, the general mass of people will be an unwanted population like dogs and monkeys. As the monkeys are too sexually inclined and the dogs are shameless in sexual intercourse, the general mass of population born of illegitimate connection will systematically go astray from the Vedic way of good manners and qualitative engagements in the caste and orders of life. And then later on, he says the Vedic way of life does not allow any man to be like monkeys and dogs. A degraded civilization of sense gratification and economic development is the byproduct of a godless or a kingless government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So Prabhupada uses this phrase over here, of the people, by the people, for the people. And many of you will recognize that this is a phrase that is used to describe democracy. That so I'm not sure who said it. I think it was either it's in the Constitution of America, it's said by the founding fathers, but this phrase is almost it's congruent with democracy. What is democracy? Of the people, for the people, by the people. So Prabhupada here basically is saying that when there is democracy, the civilization and economic development. Okay, verse 46. धर्मपाल नरपति सातु सम्राट बृहक्षवाक साक्षान् महाभागवतो राजऋषि हयमेधयात् क्षुत्र क्षमायुतो दिनो नेवश्मक चापम अर्हति. The Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first-class devotee of the personality of Godhead. He is a saint amongst royalty, and he has performed many horse sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed. So, in the mood of a Brahman, in the first set of verses, Shamik Rishi is taking the responsibility on himself, or on the Brahmanical class, or on his son, but he is looking at and within himself, that this is why we have done something wrong. This is the consequences of the bad action that we have done. Now he's going to turn the focus to the king. And in the next set of verses, he will explain that why the king should not have been cursed. So in this verse, he gives 7 reasons why the king should not have been cursed. So he says that Narapati Samrat, that he is the Narapati means that Pati means protector. So he's the protector of the people. And Samrat is the emperor of the entire world. So just because he's in that position, he should not be cursed. Then Dharmapala is the protector of religion. Then Shavaha, he is celebrated for reasons. That Sakshat Mahabhagavat is directly a first-class devotee of the Lord. King, he is a saint amongst the king. Then Hayamediyat, he is the performer of great horse sacrifices. He had done 3 Ashwamedha Yagyas, and then Kshutra Kshama Yuta Dina. Thirst. So he gives the reasons why Maharaj Parikshit should not have been cursed, and then he gives a mitigation also, that even if the first 6 things were not true, then just because he was tired and fatigued, stricken by hunger and thirst, he deserved to be forgiven. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that all the qualities of a Kshatriya mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 1843 were present in the person of the emperor. He was also a great devotee of the Lord and a self-realized soul. Cursing such a king when he was tired and fatigued with hunger and thirst was not at all proper. Shamik Rishi thus admitted from all sides that Maharaj Parikshit was cursed most unjustly. Although all the Brahmins were aloof from the incident, still, from the childish action of a Brahmin boy, the whole world situation was changed. Thus, Rishi Shamik, a Brahmin, took responsibility for all the deterioration of the good orders of the world. Okay, next verse, 47. Eshu swabhrateshu balena pavagbuddhina papam kritam tad bhagwan sarvatma kshantam marasi. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy, who had no intelligence, who had committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate, and who deserved to be protected. So another reason that comes forth is that one who has taken shelter of you should be protected. So the king, by virtue of being in the Kshatriya class, had voluntarily accepted the guidance and but is under your protection, even if he does something that is untoward, then it is your duty to protect him. So a quick summary. So the previous is worthy of being condemned. So some of the points are made more than once, but I've summarized them and I state them only once. So first is that the king is Narendaram, the god amongst men. So his acts are beyond reproach. Then the king, then the king is the protector of the people. So he protects the kingdom and the people. So without the king, there is ruination. Third is that the offense of Maharaj Parikshit was minor. So all he did was to pick a snake and dead snake and put it around the shoulder. It wasn't even a live snake that could have bitten the saint, just a dead snake. It was a minor offense. Fourth is that the punishment should be commensurate to the severity of the crime. So for such a minor crime, cursing the person to die was inappropriate. Fifth is that exceptional situations need to be handled differently. So this situation was exceptional because of who the so-called offender was. He was the king, the emperor. The situation was exceptional because he was under the influence of thirst and hunger, so it should have been handled differently. And again, it was exceptional because the person who was offended was a Brahman who should have forgiven. Sixth, sixth to ninth is focusing on Maharaj Parikshit, that he was bewildered by fatigue, hunger, and thirst. He was a Raj Rishi, well qualified as a king. He was a Mahabhagavatam, a great devotee, and he was completely free of sin. Then 10th is that the Brahman should always be ready to forgive. 11th is the Brahmanas the society and they should act in that way. 12th is the Brahmanas are protectors of the king and they should not harm him. So all reasons, the first two are because of the position of Maharaj Parikshit, that he occupied the position of the king. From 3 to 6 are the mitigating factors. That his offense was minor, the punishment should be commensurate to the offense. The situation was exceptional, and there was the influence of hunger and thirst. So they're all mitigating factors. 7 to 9 are glories of Maharaj Parikshit. That he was a Raj Rishi Mahabhagavatam who was completely free of sin. And from 10 to 12 are the duties of a Brahman. They're always ready. They should be always ready to forgive. They should act in a way to protect the society, and they should act in a way to protect the king. So, so in all the ways, one can see, and Shamik Rishi is making a very powerful argument that the action of Shringi is not justified. But what does Shamik Rishi says now? He says that Balena Pakwa, that my child is immature. Buddhina, that he has limited intelligence. So understanding that the only person that can forgive his son is Krishna. So he simply prays to Krishna, saying that because of all these reasons, what he has done is wrong, but he's an immature child with limited intelligence. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he gives a very interesting reason of a little deeper reason into how this or why this engagement unfolded. So Prabhupada says a question may be raised herein that since it was the desire of the Lord that Parishit Maharaj be put into an awkward situation so that he might be delivered from material existence, then why was a Brahmana son made responsible for this offensive act? The answer is that the offensive act was performed by a child only so that he could be excused very easily. And thus, the prayer of the father was accepted. So here Prabhupada is saying that just as Krishna made arrangements for Parishad Maharaj to be cursed so that the Bhagavatam be spoken, he also made arrangement that the person who curses is an immature boy. And because he is a young immature boy, his activities can be easily excused. So the understanding is that when Shamik Rishi prayed to Krishna to forgive his son was actually forgiven. Prabhupada goes on to say, if the question is raised, the whole was made responsible for allowing Kali into world affairs, the answer is given in Varapura. That the demons who acted inimically towards the personality of Godhead were not killed by the Lord, but were allowed to take birth in the families of the Brahmanas to take advantage of the age of Kali. The all-merciful Lord gave them a chance to have their births in the families of pious Brahmins so that they could progress towards salvation. But the demons, instead of utilizing the good opportunity, misuse the Brahmanical culture due to being puffed up by vanity and becoming Brahmins. The typical example is the son of Shamik Rishi. And all the foolish son of Brahmins are warned hereby not to become as foolish as Shringi and to be always on guard against the demoniac qualities which they had in the previous births. So this is a heavy statement that Prabhupada is making, that those who are born in the Brahman families are actually demons in the previous lives. So in the Kali Yuga, of course, he's saying, are actually demons in the previous life, and this is there in Varapuran, that because these demons were not killed, they did not get salvation. But because Krishna is kind, he still, even though they were inimical, he still was merciful on them, and in order to help them escape the cycle of birth and death, he gave them an opportunity to take birth in the families of Brahmanas in the age of Kali. But because the Brahmins still had the residual demoniac tendencies, they acted in a way that Shringi did, which is they acted out of proud misuse of Brahmanical powers, exploiting their seminal birth. So that's why Srila Prabhupada cautions that don't be as foolish as Shringi. And then he concludes by saying, the foolish boy was, of course, excused by the Lord. But others who may not have a father like Shamik Rishi will be put into great difficulty if they misuse the advantages obtained by birth in a Brahman family. Okay, next verse. Tiraskrata vipralabdaha shapta kshipata hatapi nasya tat pratikurvanti tad bhakta prabhavopihi. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. And then there are many instances in the Itihas and the Puranas where we see these things happening. And more contemporary times, we see Haridas Thakur, that he was almost killed. We see the example of Chitraketu, who was cursed, and then it is said even though he was powerful enough as a Vaishnava to reverse the curse, but he accepted it. We see the situation in the example of Vasudev, where Kamsa was prosecuting him, and Vasudev was tolerating it. So the underlying reason is that they are so forbearing there. So Prabhupada says that it is not that only the Brahmanas are powerful enough to award curses or blessings upon the subordinate. The devotees of the Lord, even though he may not be a Brahman, is more powerful than a Brahman. But a powerful devotee never misuses the power for personal benefit. Whatever power the devotee may have is always utilized in service towards the Lord and his devotees only. So once I was having this discussion with my Guru Maharaj on this whole, what is the underlying machinery behind cursing and blessing that we see so many times in the Bhagavatam and the Puranas, that a person blesses somebody and the person curses something. So how does the whole thing work? And essentially it is because of Brahma Tejas, that if the person has enough pious credit, he can use it to bless, or he can use it to curse. And Lord Brahma is the one who actually does that evaluation. That ultimately the results of a curse or a blessing are given by Lord Brahma. But for instance, our Brahma Tejas may not be much, so we go and curse somebody, and nothing happens to him. I say, what's going on? But we don't have that. We don't have that potency. Similarly, for blessings, there are people who give so many blessings, and many of them don't work because the person doesn't have that potency. But Srila Prabhupada is saying that the Brahmanas may get the power to bless or curse because of their austerities, because of the tejas. The devotees are actually much more powerful because they're connected to Krishna. But a devotee will only use that power when it is in the service of Krishna. You will rarely see devotees utter curses or blessings, of course, again, but you'll rarely see devotees utter curses. So it is said that when you curse, then you're supposed to tie your Brahman thread, and as you curse, you're supposed to break it, which is a formal indication. And there's a sharp mantra that you're supposed to recite. But all this is very much in the peripheral understanding of Vaishnavas. Their focus is mostly on blessings. That how can I make the life of somebody else better? So we also see over here, Shamik Rishi is praying exclusively for the mercy of Krishna to forgive his son. So in some other circumstances, since Shringi had acted irreligiously, then the person may have counter-cursed. And because of that counter-cursing, then at least he would have been relieved of his sinful reaction. Like we see that interaction between Vashishta and the king. I forget the name of the king, but this was a king that had Vashishta as his priest. And then he asked Vashishta to come and do a yajna for him. But in the meantime, Indra came to him and said, "You do a yajna for me." And Vashishta, he preferred to do it for Indra because Indra was in a more elevated position. So when he came back, he found out that the king had already had another priest do the yajna. So Vashishta became very angry. And then he said that I had already told you that I will do it. Why did you have somebody else to do this? So I curse you to die. And the king it's not very clear he was a devotee. It is actually said he was a devotee. That the king was powerful as a devotee. So he says that you have cursed me wrongly. And actually, I curse you to die. And even though I can negate the effect of your curse, but I accept the curse. So the king, he accepted the curse because he wanted to go back to Godhead. But because of the effect of the king's curse, Vashishta died. And then there's a pastime that goes on, that even though he dies, he takes his second birth as the son of Varun. So Vashishta is born as Vashishta II, as the son of Varun and Gritachki, I think Apsara or Gritachki. So back to this verse. So Shamik Rishi knows that Maharaj Parikshit, even though he's qualified and potent, he's not going to counter curse his son. So his son is going to be saddled with the sinful reactions. So he's exclusively praying for the mercy of Krishna to forgive his son. Next verse, 49. Itriputtakrutagena sonya tapta mahamune swayam viprakrato rajna nevagam tadachintayat. The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. So this verse is essentially a summarization. So a lot has been said in the previous set of verses, previous 10 verses, and this just summarizes that he did not consider Maharaj Parishad to be offender. He actually considered his son to have committed a sin, and he was genuinely regretful of it. Prabhupada in the purport says that actually it was a desire of the Lord and Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Samik, and Shringi were all instrumental. So I should have put a comma. So he said, actually, it was a desire of the Lord. And Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Shamik, his son Shringi were all instrumental in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relationship with the Supreme Person. Okay, next verse is the last verse in this chapter, verse 50. Prayasah sadvaloke parirvandeshu yojitaha savyatahanti na hrisyanti yatatma agunashrayaha. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendently engaged. So this verse is kind of spoken to address an implicit question that Shringi was forgiven because he was a boy, immature. But what about poor Maharaj Parikshit? In the prime of his youth, he's been cursed to die in 7 days. So in this pastime that Krishna engaged different personalities, it seems that Maharaj Parikshit has received the harsher end of the stick. So Sutta Goswami says that that's not true. He's saying that, so he's talking about transcendentalists, but actually he's talking about Maharaj Parikshit over here. So Sutta is saying that as a devotee, Maharaj Parikshit is na vyathanti na harshyanti. That he is neither happy nor distressed. Although externally he may be placed in dvandeshu. Although externally he may be placed in duality. So the dvandeshu to some extent reflects the position of Maharaj Parikshit as a king, and to some extent also reflects the act of Maharaj Parikshit in being apparently envious of Shamik Rishi. So apparently dvandeshu, but factually na vithanti na harshanti. So because they don't really care about the dualities for them, and the biggest duality is basically birth and death. So for them, even that is not very, very relevant. So Prabhupada says the king was a devotee and the rishi was a mystic. Therefore, both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the supreme will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. So he's saying that, really speaking, that nobody suffered because the king was a devotee. He didn't really care much about living and dying. The rishi was a mystic, so he was dhira. He even though he went through this, but it didn't cloud him that my son is cursed. What do I do? You will see that all he did was he informs the king. That's it. And Shringi was a child. So as a child, he was excused. So nobody actually suffered. The only person who benefited out of it was actually the devotee. So even in this adversity, we see that Krishna always arranges circumstances to benefit his devotee. Because of this, he met Sukadev Goswami, and because of that, he sat and heard the Bhagavatam. So Burijan Prabhu, he writes a short comment on this. He says that reality for a devotee is living in relationship with the Lord. In the material world, is simply playing a part. If someone gives him $1 million or he dies, it's only a drama. It is temporary. After the drama, he walks away. He gives back the money to the person, or he pulls the knife out of his chest. So the material life is just a drama. During the drama, the actor might be thinking of a loved one who he will meet after the drama. We must see Krishna's desire in our life and make ourselves surrender to his desire. Parikshit is living in the drama of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that as the mother teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter, the Lord teaches the world through his devotee. And thus he enacted this drama in which Parikshit Maharaj was an actor. And so like when a mother scolds the daughter doesn't take any offense because she knows that the scolding is actually a teaching for the daughter-in-law. So similarly, Maharaj Parikshit was secure in his relationship with Krishna, and even though he was cursed, he was still firmly in the position of being a devotee of Krishna. So this is the end. Next week we will start with the last chapter in the first canto. So my goal is to finish the first canto in the month of Kartik by Krishna's blessing. So I'll do a quick summation of this chapter so that we are ready to go in the next. So in the first 10 verses of this chapter, we get a glimpse into the wonderful consciousness of Maharaj Parikshit and also the benefits of the age of Kali. So remember the benefits of the age of Kali, that just by thinking pious activities, we get the credit. Sinful activities have to be performed. The glory of chanting the holy name. So after this, Sutta stops speaking. Then the sages speak, glorifying Sutta Goswami because of what he was giving them, which was Krishna Katha. He is glorified as being transparent, that without any interpretation, he is giving. He is doing Krishna Katha. Following this, Sutta Goswami, he in a position of genuine humility, he talks about his own low birth. He talks about his qualification as being the recipient of the mercy of the Vaishnavas. And he talks about his limitation, that only as far as the birds can fly in the sky. And he also talks about the vastness of the subject, that Krishna is like the sky, infinite, and I'm like a bird that can only fly, flying so much. And whatever I can fly is by the mercy of the devotees. Now, having said that, then he speaks about he speaks about once upon a time, the pastime of Maharaj Parikshit being hungry and thirsty in the jungle, putting the snake, returning after that, then deliberating that he did something wrong, hoping that he suffers the reaction of that as soon as possible. Then Shamik's son Shringi cursing Maharaj Parikshit to die in 7 days. Then Shringi goes back to his father. And in the last set of verses, the father gives the reasons why this action was worthy of being condemned, both from the perspective of the position of the king, from the perspective of the position of the Brahmanas, and from the perspective of the particular situation in which it happened. From all these three perspectives, the situation was worthy of being condemned. And the conclusion is on a philosophical note that um, while all this happened, and it is real, but it was enacted by Krishna. So Krishna also made sure that those who helped him enact this for the ultimate purpose of the manifestation of the Bhagavatam were also protected. Shringi was protected because of his youth, because he was a child. Shamik was protected because he was a mystic and did not become entangled. And Parshya Maharaj was protected because he was a devotee and he actually benefited out of that. So this is where this chapter ends. The next chapter will see the entry of the speaker of the Bhagavatam. So we will see that Sukadeva Goswami will enter, and most of the chapter is the speaking of the qualities of Sukadeva Goswami. So okay, I'll stop here and see if there's any questions, comments on what we spoke so far, or on anything else.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So Prabhuji, like this cursing of Maharaj Parikshit, can this be like so? Like when devotees get this like deadly disease, or there is a sickness or illness that is uh, like something like cancer or something, where you get a limited period of time, and death is certain. So in that kind of situation, is that something that's so like the countering of that particular, so probably maybe if we consider that as a curse, probably the counter curse would be like getting it treated. Is that something that
It's a little bit speculative. I mean, you're speculating. I think you're inviting me to speculate with you. Difficult to say. Many ways to understand this. The most popular way that we understand this is that we are getting a token reaction to our past activities. The second way of understanding it is that Krishna is doing it for our purification. That's the typical way that. I mean, when devotees are in any kind of adverse situations, we generally take shelter of Tate Nukampam Susamekshamano. So the verse spoken by Lord Brahma in 10th canto, 14th chapter, that's a general shelter. It's coming because purification, and it's coming because Krishna wants to help us. And then Lord Brahma says, what do we do? Right? So what does Brahma recommend? And what do we do? Says that we tolerate. That's the recommendation of Brahma. If you tolerate, then you become eligible to be a Pakka devotee of Krishna.
So tolerate means like not counter, uh, not to counter it, like not to basically treat it, or not to in a medical situation, like not to treat it, and in like other situations, like where there is emotional distress or something like that, like going away from that situation, like maybe.
Right, right. Not really. Tolerate would be, tolerate would be to uh, to tolerate the implications of that, right? Prabhupada, and it's interesting that you speak about it, because I was reading about it very recently in some blog, I forget where this very topic was actually discussed, that when devotees are facing like these kind of situations, that they are sick and they are ill, um, what do they do? Do they just surrender to the wish of Krishna, or do they actively seek treatment and try and fight it there? So, what does tolerance actually mean? So tolerance means that uh, regardless of whether you seek treatment or not, tolerance means that um, one should not get bewildered because of what's happening. That is the cornerstone, and that is basically the 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 clear message that comes through. Um, uh, Sometimes what happens is that when devotees are facing anxiety, when they're not able to tolerate it, then their spiritual life weakens. They begin to doubt their faith in Krishna. They say, Krishna, I was worshipping you. Why has this happened to me? This is not good. You're supposed to take care of your devotees. So that is not tolerated, right? So as long as that foundation is there, that you're tolerated, now on that basis, the action that you take is the most appropriate in the situation. Like when Srila Prabhupada was sick, he was actively seeking treatment. He was actively asking his disciples to pray for him, right? But the mood of the prayers, that was a revelation, right? What did he ask? So when he had his heart attack in New York, and this is very, very early days, he had just a handful of disciples. And then he asked them to pray to Lord Narsingadev. And then they asked him, what should we pray? And he said, you should pray that, O Lord Narsingadev, if you so desire, then please protect the life of our Gurudev so that he can continue to preach and serve you. So these two aspects, right? Why was Srila Prabhupada saying that he's attached to his body seemingly? Because he was using his body in the service of Krishna. And also accepting the fact that if you so desire, that ultimately there is the submission to the will of the Lord. As long as we can manifest these two qualities, as long as we can understand that we have uh, we have submission to the will of the Lord, and also whatever we do is to help spiritual life. So if a person who's not as elevated as Prabhupada is in this situation, they can still say that if you so desire, and they can still say that, so that I can continue to make devotional spiritual advancements. That if I can continue to retain my body, so that I can continue to use it in your service and make spiritual attachment. Sincerely, of course, that, because if they feel that that's what they would need their body for. When Bhakti Tirth Maharaj was leaving his body, and so he was in Gita Nagri, and then we had you can say with the good fortune, or it was a very trying time also, because we had seen Bhakti Tirth Maharaj from the time that he was a strong, vibrant, powerful preacher, and then in the later stages of cancer, he was just a shell of a person. He was barely able to speak is, he weighed just, he was just skin and bones. There, he could just whisper. But the most inspiring thing was that whenever he spoke about Krishna's mercy. He spoke about Krishna's mercy, and he was continuously thanking the devotees around. So, the interesting point is that just before Maharaj was diagnosed with cancer, in his Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada, he had actually recited the prayers of Vasudev Datta, saying that may all the sufferings of all the materially engaged souls come to me, so that the others can engage in your service. And then after that, when he was diagnosed with melanoma, then his disciples, they were actually upset at Maharaj, saying that, and disciples, they're like children to the spiritual master, and they were saying that you pray that not in this lifetime. You pray that your previous prayer should not be considered. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would laugh, and then he would say, how can I say that? He said, when I prayed with sincerity. The fact that I have got this means that Krishna is hearing my prayers, which means I have a connection with Krishna. Wow, what more can for me? Sense that I'm deviating a little bit from the topic at hand. For a long time. I'm not sure, Achyuta, if I answered your question.
Yes, Rishi. I'm just wondering, like, Parikshit Maharaj could do pray in that way, right? That when he got the curse, like, he could also say that, whatever Krishna you desire, like, but basically.
That's what he did, right? Even though we don't see that prayer, but ultimately his actions were representative of that mood. That he accepted this as the will of Krishna.
Basically, took treatment, like, and then also prayed to in that way.
Like that. Yeah, he could have done that. Different situations, different, Vaishnav Maharaj, his role in the whole drama was to help in the manifesting the Bhagavatam. So that's what he did. Different plays, different roles, different actors. If all the actors had the same role, the movies would become very boring, right? In the old time in Hindi movies, right? What would they say? That this is a masala movie. So they followed a very, very predictable plot. That hero meets heroine, villain comes, hero beats the villain, and hero marries the heroine. So the movies would follow a very, very predictable plot. And then eventually people got tired of it, and then they started changing it. So if Krishna enacted all his plays in the same way, then then we would not be sitting here relishing them and having this conversation on them.
Makes sense, Rahul. Thank you so much.
So how is everyone's Kartik going?
Decided something, a lot of lofty plans, but I'm not able to do. After a few days, it just went downhill a little bit for me. I'm only able to fast, like what I've decided, but I'm not able to like read as regularly as I had planned. But I do want to like finish Bhagavad Gita like this month, so I'm not able to do that like every day that I planned, but I do want to finish it by the end of this month.
Actually, Kartik Vrats are pretty empowering. In the month of Kartik, I read the Bhagavatam twice. In two different Kartiks. Just the English translation. So if you do 600 verses a day, you'll actually finish the Bhagavatam.
How long does that take, Prabhu? 600 per day?
600 per day takes about 3 hours. But actually the advantage I had was this whole technology thing, right? So I could of course read at home, which I did, but I had it on my phone. So I was reading it. I had that Veda base, I think it's called Pocket Vedas. I had, sorry. So I had Pocket Vedas. So I would read it during my commute and whatever time that I got. So initially I had thought that I'll do it in 30 days, but interestingly, I actually did it in 25 days, and then the remaining 5 days I did Bhagavad Gita there. But it's something that I would strongly recommend because reading the whole Bhagavatam in a short period of time, just verse by verse, it gives you a very good idea of the flow of the Bhagavatam. That so many things come forth, sometimes, and which is needed, but we drill down and we look at every verse, at every word in the verse, and then we understand. We kind of plumb the depth of the Bhagavatam, but also helps to like step back, take the 10,000 feet view, and see the ocean, the flow of the Bhagavatam. So, so like I said, I did it twice for the Bhagavatam. I did it once for CC. It's something that I would strongly recommend. At least give it a try, based on my recommendation. Maybe in the next Kartik.
Sure, bro. Roji, I also actually came across Aila Gita, like, I'm just trying to understand, is that like very in the 11th canto? I think chapter 26 or something, 25, 26. It's called, it's mentioned as the name of the chapter is Aila Gita, AILA. I'm not sure, is that, I mean, I heard about, I mean, I know about Uddhav Gita, but is that, is Aila Gita also like similar to Bhagavad Gita or Uddhav Gita?
So Gita means song. So it has nothing to do with Krishna per se, right? Bhagavad Gita is the song of God. That's why Bhagavad Gita is special. Uddhav Gita is the song sung to Uddhav. That's special because Krishna said that. But there are many Gitas. Ela Gita I understand as Yayati, King Yayati's realizations. There is Bhumi Gita, which is sung by Mother Earth. There is Gopi Gita, sung by the gopis. So Gita is just song. If you sing one, there'll be a Chuta Gita.
So these are basically just prayers, like Yayati prayers or Bhumi Devi's prayers, like that.
These are just prayers.
Okay.
Yeah. They're just prayers. Gita means they're generally Anustup Chanda, and the fact that they're song means that they have meter to it. But yeah, essentially Gita is, the Sanskrit word is very similar to the Hindi word. It's just Geet. It's just a song. So Gita means sung, something that has been sung.
Thank you, bro. Just one last observation. Like, I mean, I feel like in Kartik, like whatever, or, whatever vrat we take in Kartik, like it just, like I try to basically do like one addition and one subtraction. So like addition is adding something to your current practices. And one subtraction would be like, leaving something like fasting.
Some austerity.
Yeah, some kind of. So it's just easier to like subtract things rather than like add things. I don't know, it's just, for me personally, it's always been like that. Like I decide to do, like, whether it is more rounds or whether it is more reading or more services, it's just been easier to like fast.
It's I can relate to what you're saying, because I also have the same experience myself. But it's like in this Kartik, I'm following Ekadashi for all 30 days, so I'm not eating grains. It's easy. It's easy to do. Like you said, it's a subtraction. Then the few additions that I wanted to do, not been able to do. I wanted to increase my reading, which I was not able. Not sometime for a short time was able to do. But it depends on one's nature. In my wife's case, it's the opposite. That she's very easily able to handle additions. Like for Kartik, she has all these prayers that she recites every day. Narsing Kavach, then prayers for Srimati Radharani, and a whole set of prayers that she does, and other reading and all that. She's easily able to do that, but difficult for her to give up things. Difficult for her to follow Ekadashi Vrat or Bhishma Panchak or anything like that. So I think it depends on nature. It's difficult for me to say which is better, giving up or taking on. Ideally speaking, one can do both. As you were saying, that's the best scenario. But my personal take is this is not. This is from a personal perspective. Is that make the best of what you have. If that's where your strength is, then that's what you capitalize on.
Is that like, because when the mode of goodness is stronger, then you're able to add, and then when mode of, like, when the lower modes are more prominent, you're able to, like, I don't know, I feel like that I need more goodness to add things in my life rather than I mean, austerity is okay, but like minusing things is okay, but like adding things, I just need to be more consistent.
So you're using an argument that is exactly the same as my wife's argument. That when we have discussions on how to do our Kartik, then we go this route, because generally it's good, it's good for the husband and the wife to do it together. And then I try to steer her towards some austerity, and she tries to steer me towards doing something extra. And then we generally have this, I have a full day at work, I'm out for 10 hours every day, and difficult for me to add. So fraction is easier, and invariably at some point, some of these comments will be made that, mode of ignorance, people give up things, mode of take things. So, um, so, so I'm sure, I think.
Is that true though, Prabhuji? I was only speculating.
I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is true, because austerity in Krishna's service is obviously in the mode of goodness. Prabhupada at one point does say that too much of austerity, it makes your heart hard.
Yeah.
So that is not recommended. But in the scheme of things that we are doing, the austerity that we are doing is infinitesimal, very, very small. Too much of austerity would be probably something like, I don't know, it's something like staying awake for all 30 days, or being in the cold all the time. So what we do is really just basically nudging out of a comfort zone into the stress zone. I mean, to be honest with you, if I had the choice, I would rather veer towards adding than subtracting. Because that's what our mood is, more for offering what we can offer. But again, from a practical perspective, it's more to play on our strengths and hope for the weaknesses to be overcome eventually. Okay, so we are actually way over time, so I'll end over here. My apologies. Vancha kalpatarubhayaschet kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.